Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is Trusting the Inner Event, and I wanted to share some commentary and some ideas on this notion that the human being is not in a situation where it has to only trust the outer realm, that you have to trust your mind even though it is not an object. And how does one work with that? A person wants to drink a glass of water, they have to trust the event. They have to trust holding the cup. They have to trust the water being filled. They have to trust even the ending, as if there's a beginning, middle, and end to every action, and you have to trust it in order to see all the stages of it, you know? Now, life is very interesting because we are born trusting the system. Everybody trusts their beginning without knowing it. Like, you can't distrust it, you just emerge. So the first stage was emergence, which we've gone through. We've technically gone through that event, the beginning. Now we're in the middle. Now we're in the middle of this action of living. And in the middle, we're wondering or trusting or distrusting or just getting acquainted with the dimensions of our world. If the world is multidimensional, it's unknown. It's unknowable. If the world is in a singular dimension, it can be known to a certain rate. In this episode, I'm going to try to share experiences mainly I've had, because trust is not a concept. Like, somebody could tell you there's a party in the next room, and all you have is just trusting the moment. And trust is something you need until you actually know. When a person experientially knows, the trust becomes instantaneous. Think of someone going to work in the same routine, in the same work route. The person may, the first couple weeks, try to have a sort of novelty, innovation, something new. But after a while, you endure in the system, you trust it, and it becomes second nature. I feel we experience phenomena, we go through experiences in this life, then these experiences, they don't stop. They continue on in our minds. So, for example, when I have a memory in 2020 of, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, you know, or maybe even 20 years ago, that memory has echoed from the moment of its creation till now. That means, believe it or not, memories, just like how man needs a world to be in, the content of your mind, your memories, your visuals, inner visuals, they require you. Just like man requires a world to exist, thoughts require a mind to exist. And that's the cool thing about ideology. That's the incredible thing of how we are an idea right now. An idea can be treated as if it is set in stone. You can treat ideology like structures that can't be moved. Or you can treat ideology as blueprints, as if houses that haven't been built yet in the behavior of the individual. There is something occupying. I want you to occupying the human attention. And you know what that is? That is kind of like the mind's life being more crucial to consciousness than the body's life. Right now, me saying these words right now, me speaking, there's something significant about what the mind can do, or what the mind can be compared to what the body can do. I used to write before I started giving these talks. When I would write fast, then I would realize eventually you can't have speed. When somebody is writing, that's kind of like way more slowed down than when you speak. When you speak, you can have the fluidity of movement and going into different angles. But when somebody writes something, it is structured, you know, it's as if like columns are moving behind the person's eyes, you know. You know what's interesting? The person's house is kept by columns, let us say, and let us say in the inner realms, it is kept by columns of language, columns of identity. There is so much to the world that is hidden, you know? I have done things that the moment I did them, I felt I was a bad person, you know? Then years later, I realized there is some. It's like I don't know how to tell you. It's like you get angry, then you realize you never needed to be there. You know, that's the thing about life. When it feels like a mistake, it's as if the person has walked to the wrong part of the forest of their mind. You know. I'll give you some examples, guys, of what it's like trusting the inner event and where it can take you and what it can do. 2011, I reached the preferenceless point of my life. I felt I was moving against the river. I felt my karma, everything, the way the world was engaging me. I felt I was walking against the river. You know, a sort of karmic quarantine. After that karmic quarantine, I reached a point where I realized my whole life I had been conditioned to run after what was known. Everybody had told me, do this, do that. All the actions that people had told me to do in this life were known. And I'll never forget it. It was one of the best moments of this life where I sat down on a rock in the middle of a river and I realized it's okay that it's unknown. That the problem of distrusting the inner event is that we have been using shape. You know, it's like a person can try as hard as they want to be a tree, but they're not a tree. You know, you know. I remember there was a scene in the movie Step Brothers, which was the funniest thing. I was like literally exploding with laughter. It was so funny. It was hilarious. It was that scene at the end where the father comes to the two brothers and he's like, "When I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be a T-Rex." And the two sons are like, "T-Rex, Dad?" You know? And the father's like, "Yeah," until one day my father was like, "You're 14, go get a job." You know? And it was honestly one of those scenes that it's how you identify with life sets your karma. How you decide what your hunger level is sets your karma. There are those people who succeed in, for example, a capitalistic system. They are hungry. I will tell you, success is all about hunger. Have you noticed when a person goes hungry, what kind of force comes in to try to keep yourself alive? I feel it's the same thing, but it's echoing in the capitalistic system. And it's not that capitalism is an issue. I actually have this view that it's like our minds are subjectifying the objects of this world. Therefore, there is nothing to be disturbed by. We are turning the moment into a subject. We have the alphabet, the references, the vocabulary, the identity, the reference points. And when the person becomes selfless, you learn from every self. You learn from the experience. That's what's really missing. That we are building a society with the illusion of progress. And this house of cards has already been blown away, that it's time for a new effort, a new prototype for a new civilization. You know, and that's where trusting the inner event goes on, because the outer events are known. It is the inner event that is unknown. When I wake up in the day, in the morning, how I'm going to be coming back to like sleeping before, like right before I sleep in the bed, you know, it would be a moment where it's like it's unknown to me. There's so many things that are unknown. It's just that when I started being playful with the unknown, knowledge started behaving differently. I am telling you, sometimes in life, what you resist resists you. I'll tell you an example, you know. Imagine you're a kid, a young kid, and you want to play. You want to play a game and others are playing a game and you can't play that game, you know. Now imagine this young kid doesn't know of its own individualism. This young kid is standing by the game watching, right? This kid has never played the game. This game, imagine like, I don't know, whatever sport game you could see. Like a game is being played, this kid is watching from the side, not part of the game. First of all, that's how every human being feels, by the way, when they open up to the social and cultural dimensions and even the political dimensions of their realm. That kid would, after some time, imagine somebody sees that kid. That kid is me, guys. I had an experience like this when I was young. I was I just pretty much these people were playing soccer, and I just went beside and I just watched. I think it was like maybe 20 minutes. I was just watching, you know. But I had done something where I had worn soccer shoes. So imagine someone with soccer shoes in the field watching, and I would watch the soccer game, because here's the thing. Sometimes in life it works. It works actually biting into the forbidden fruit, going into your desire. But when the person experiences a couple times their desire doesn't work, there is a sort of humbling process of the realm, where it's as if like you feel you deserve what you actually don't touch. It's this weird thing. So I remember I'm standing there beside the soccer pitch, you know, and these people are playing, and one person comes and says, "Hey, do you want to play and whatnot?" Do you know? And I remember in my mind I wanted to, but there was this hesitation, right? But then it was a part of me that it was as if like, you know what it is? Sometimes a sincere desire surpasses an artificial moral. And so, you know, I was welcomed and I played. This life is honestly like a song. It's like we're living inside a TV channel or multiple TV channels. I honestly wonder if civilization will ever get to a point. Right now, we are identifying with the information. We are saying we're formed beings, shaped beings, we're individuals. But I wonder if ever civilization in the future is going to get to a point where people are not seen as individuals, they are seen as energy that is conditionally conscious. As if energy cannot be created or destroyed, it just changes form to form. You know, now imagine if energy and consciousness were the same thing, that would literally be the explanation of reincarnation. I'll give you guys an example. No, no, no. You think in the chat section you're saying, did I say artificial moral? I said moral, not mortal. Moral, morality. Your sense of right and wrong is based on an artificial you. You know, so what does that mean? That means imagine you're in a moment, but it's like the ideology doesn't allow the person to be themselves. Many people are like this. It's pretty much until you realize you're an individual, and then you laugh at everything that you felt was holding you back when you realize you had to move it. This is why I'm saying every person should get a plate. Literally see this as a kind of neo-meditation, modern, neo-modern, like a modern meditation where the person gets a plate. Go get a plate. It doesn't matter. Don't get the best plate, but whatever. Just find a plate, you know, a ceramic plate or something. And I want you to take this plate outside. And if you're a parent, this is good to teach your children as well. You know, to ask, literally hold the plate in your hand, whatever you like. Feel holding the plate in whatever way you like, and then take the plate and with just look at it, and with the whatever you like, with the biggest intensity, same freedom of control you had in holding the plate, slam the plate to the ground and break it. Do you know? And you're going to realize this is life. Things are held for some time. They can be shared, but then the levels of it move on. That means I noticed that, like I'll tell you the hilarious evolution of my thinking as I've been giving these talks throughout the years on these talks, right? At first, I decided, like it was a decision, one night decision where I was like, all right, 10,000 talks. Then I started actually thinking, how is it possible? Then I thought about the notion of content. And then I realized, let's say I wanted to give the same talk every day. I thought about all the options. I thought, okay, let's say if I want to say like the same thing, let's say the person wakes up and says the earth is round, you know, or something more of a subjective nature even. You know, that's more objective. That's way more evident. But I would say things of a subjective nature, like concepts and whatever, I realize it's impossible to wake up every day and be changing as a person and to be able to see things the same way. So the cool thing about this life is, even though we have memories of yesterday, we are not that self that experienced that memory. What does that mean? That means the here and now is where the future is made, where the attitude to the future is set. All these people thinking about mindsets, what's the right mindset to be? The best mindset is to wonder about how your mind is set into the moment. How is it set into motion from the moment you wake up? You know, we need advanced beings. That's it. We don't need animals. We don't need like robotic kindness. We need, in some sense, advancement. Advancement means there's two ways. Either the civilization advances, either all those people in the power of this civilization in power positions, they're like, holy shit, are we wasting our time trying to control people? What if everybody was advanced? Like even the smartest argument for all those people, elitist power systems, is simply this: whether you are the controller or you are the controlled, both arguments lead to the same outcome. If you are controlled, you want to be in an advanced civilization. Very obvious. If you're the controller, don't you want to control an advanced civilization? That means it doesn't matter. You can choose to wear the mask of the villain, or you can choose to wear the mask of the hero, but to allow civilization to advance transcends any sort of right and wrong of self-acclaim. You know? We have to let go of what doesn't work if we want to work with what does. That's simply it. That's the secret to skill. That in the process of mastery, you will die many times to yourself as a novice. You will feel yourself as a fool. And the person who can't fear being a fool, your eyes will remain open regardless of what the world says. You know what that means? That means the days pass by and the person wakes up one day and something bad happens. And the person sees it, just watches it like a film. Oh man, the script of the day was bad, written bad, you know. And then you see the next day the person wakes up, an incredible thing happens. I've had days that have been so silly, you don't know. It's like I have laughed at my karma maybe like 70% of this lifetime. and maybe 30% comprehended it. Because the point of it is that it's really dictated on the receiver. If you realize you're an antenna, then you will realize knowledge is coming to you when you are unknown. Think of it as laws of it, not a law of attraction. Like I'm not. I'll be honest, guys. I don't like any robotic behavior. It doesn't matter if it's too intentional or not. If there is no life in the moment, the moment was dead before it could be alive. The position of human beings is to add life to a dimension that appears lifeless. In the process of them adding the dimension of your life, that means all that this existence is kind of commanding the creature is like, hey creature, 4 billion years, it took you to get here. Now that you're here, be the creature you are. That's the biggest thing. That means after some point, it's like you don't want people to follow anything. You just want their DNA to activate in the most efficient way. That's it. That means I've noticed this. There's been times where certain people I've spoken to, this was in the UK, where I remember I had spoken very clearly about something and certain people had found an affinity. I'll tell you guys a crazy experience. This was in the UK actually before I gave the talks. I'm going to share this story. It was one of the coolest experiences. Pretty much, I went to Birmingham, UK to study mechanical engineering, and these talks kind of began when I was there. I went as a student. I was in this accommodation area, which now the building has been destroyed and the universities kind of owns the space. But it was a place called Curzon Gateway. In some of my pictures, you can still see it. Some of my early talks, you can see the picture of the place. So I remember I was there in Birmingham in this accommodation setting, and I had these flatmates, and we went, to the pub, like in UK, they would go to the pub. And I remember we came back, we were intoxicated, right? And there was this round table in the middle of the yard. And I remember I was sitting there, and I was also having a bit of it was taking me a bit to kind of learn, comprehend the accent, There were some people from Nottingham there, like their accent was so heavy. But I remember anyways, I was there intoxicated at night, sitting at this round table with the crowd of different people from the different accommodation buildings, all in the yard. And I remember I just reach a point where I realize my balance is off. So I go and sit down on the grass. Everybody's sitting at a table. I just go sit on the grass, like literally cross-legged, and I close my eyes. I just closed my eyes to reorient my balance. Guys, I'm not kidding. This was the coolest experience of my life. I'm sitting there, my eyes are closed. I open my eyes. Everyone from the table came down and was sitting on the grass around me in a circle. So I pretty much sat on the grass, closed my eyes, woke up, everybody had come and sat on the grass. And people were like, "Are you meditating?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm just sitting. I'm pretty drunk." Like it was a very unique moment. It was a moment where sometimes when you go in accordance to the melody of your own life, you get to see the karma you deserve, not the karma you want. I feel the free will doesn't have choice in what happens to it, but it has a choice in how it receives what happens to it. And if the person finds a sort of serenity, or as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, diversity without separateness is the ultimate that the mind can touch. That we, as not just a species, but as a cosmic event, accept the moment. It's that simple. That all these people who have been talking about the concept of soul, which the word comes from the breath, It's a derivation of the word breath. Like it's derived from the word breath. The soul is the moment. Booyah. We are potential in the waiting. You know, sometimes I remember I reached a philosophical position in my inner realms. I was wondering about the realm. I was thinking about individual purpose and if individual purpose can ever be collective. Sorry, can ever be just individual. Like, is it possible to live as an individual in a collective system and think you just live as an individual? You know, could our freedom be an avoidance of a collective responsibility? You know, because a lot of the future generations, not a lot, but a lot of people I notice, because they're uncomfortable with the circumstance, the existential circumstance, they are in some sense in a justification. That means it's like, imagine talking to someone for hours about non-duality, then the person's like, yeah, we gotta go in the street and fight, and you're like, okay, okay, man. It's like, what happened to all that non-duality a minute ago, you know? Right? And that's the thing, we have to input meaning into our system, yet at the same time not be defined by the system. The citizen has a complex task ahead. It's not gonna, you know, as civilization becomes more multidimensional, as technologies add dimensions and depth to our life, our responsibility can't be just the same. That means if you are behaving the same way you behaved when you were like 10 years old, that means you haven't seen a depth to life. You could have been experiencing life, but to see a depth requires conscious engagement. There's a difference between someone who just sees something and someone who wants to see something. For example, in my youth, when I was young, my family had a chance to visit Italy, and so I was maybe like 10, and I was visiting like the Sistine Chapel. I remember walking inside it, but years later, when I realized who had drawn and what was in the Sistine Chapel and that artwork in the ceiling, what it meant, then it made me want to totally go back there again. Even though I had been in that moment, I hadn't seen anything because I didn't want to see anything. You know, so in life, if you are not alert, this is what I think. I think we are so conditioned to be ideas so quickly in the moment that we don't realize we have to allow an energetic contentment to then lead to something, you know? Guys, Charles has said an incredible statement. Uh, Charles, I'm going to read your full name because it's a good statement. Charles Godwin says, life is the event horizon of the cosmos. And people are like, is Charles Godwin a philosopher? I'll be like, no, it's a person in the chat section. It's maturity. You know, the child at a certain age cannot see something, so it can't do something. That's innocence, the innocence of the child. The child doesn't know better. If it makes a mistake, all right, you made a mistake. But when you actually know better, then to make a mistake, it's not even fun. You know, that means it's like, imagine your whole life, you had lost. You had lost and you were losing. You know? Let's say everything you tried, you lost. Then after a point, you'd be like, okay, is this like the norm? It doesn't bother you. Just like how advanced good things can become second nature, advanced bad things can also become second nature. It's all about your attention. If you treat yourself not as a thought, that means you have a shapeless relationship with your own eyes as the moment. I definitely have a shapeless relationship. I just call it at most, if like, you know, even though I use the term soul, but for me it has all come down to just the presence of the moment. That means somebody says, "What are you?" I'll be like, "It's just like when I was a kid in school and the teacher would call your name and you'd be like, present, you know, I'm in the present, you know." So what is the value of trusting the inner event? Trusting the inner event, the value of it is it adds something new to the moment. And for example, the states of joy, fun, playfulness, these are states that are not seeing the conditional first. They're seeing the unconditional. And that's pretty much life. You open your eyes through a set of conditions to realize that the world is, I've termed it life, the grand happening. It's a grand happening. That's it. It's something that's just happening. Now we can consciously engage or unconsciously witness. And it depends what you do. For me, it was, this is a workstation. Every person has to somehow live a life where they remember their great work and they continue it. What does that mean? That means, imagine you're like somebody who's trying to go to an EDM concert, and you accidentally walk into a corporate space and you think that's where the EDM concert is, and in the middle of like the halls of the cubicle, you have, like, let's say, you're dancing to music, and then somebody in the corporate place comes and says, "Hey man, why are you just dancing here? This is a place of business. This is a place of work. This is a place where now the multidimensional work of the attention is beginning." Guys, whoever is sharing a quote in the chat section, please put the name of the person if it's a quote. You know, uh, that way it's there's a precision to it. I think that the meaning of life is very obvious. You can literally look in the dictionary what life, the meaning of it is, the definition of it is. Here it says the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. So whoever wants to find the meaning of life, yeah, look at your dictionary. But now it's not about the meaning of life. That question's becoming outdated. Now it's becoming, why are we experiencing existence? That question is like, the successor of the previous. Instead of us looking at for the meaning of life, we are now wondering, how are you experiencing existence right now? When this question becomes fascinating, you will start learning from every idiosyncrasy. You start literally learning from your mind. So if you're a person who, let's say, you are alone, or you are living in the forest, you're not around people, at least the best thing you can do with your time is learn from the person that you know. That means when I look at people, I don't know them, but they are, that's why you communicate and you get to know people. But when I look at myself, I'm a person I know. But when I come to know, all I know is the personalities coming by. As Sri Ramana Maharshi says, let what comes come, let what goes go, see what remains. So now we need the panache of field-like minds rather than particles unconsciously being thrown around in this cosmic expanse. Because what is the cost of peace? We know what the cost of war is. Many people know the cost of war is destruction, but what is the cost of peace? The cost of peace is opportunities for advancement. That means imagine a group of scientists, very, very well and elegant and classy scientists, sitting in a room. Now imagine they suddenly descend to like the medieval ages, and let's say it was like at a breakfast and all these scientists have butter knives and they're trying to like, defeat each other in this battlefield. It would be a sort of notion that we are at a higher level, but if we behave at a lower level, then we don't deserve to actually see the higher level. That means it's like the era of depression ends. That word is being exiled. What does that mean? That means even the concept is a self-exile. The person is convinced of a self that they think they are, not realizing the nature of it is changing. That means think about all the days you have lived on this planet, all the different things you have endured through, and literally like something you were angry about, then days passed and you weren't even aware. Like the memory got dismissed. You know what it is? For me, it feels kind of like when I wake up in the morning, I'm like someone sitting at an office, and the events of the day are all those people coming to meet. You know? When I was in Rishikesh, India, I was in this place called Nikatam Ashram for like 2 months, couple months there. Uh, I remember there was a certain group of people who were designated to feed the people in the ashram. They would handle the kitchen, and it was a group of people who would walk together. And there was a dog that would always follow these group of people. It was so weird that there were other dogs, there were other animals in there in India, but there was this one dog that strangely followed just this crew of people. And this dog wasn't angry, it wasn't vicious, it wasn't violent, it was just there. They had this gate, and I remember standing in front of this gate. The guy had opened the gate. Two people had gotten on a motorcycle, leaving the gate of the ashram, going into the street. And I remember seeing this dog. I'm standing there. I see this dog looking at the open gates of the ashram. And the dog is looking, and I just go there, and I go from the side of the dog, I go in front of the gate, and I just make a noise so the dog goes back into the ashram, you know. But that was a moment where I realized, yeah, animals are not even animals. That means we are an unknown phenomena calling itself an animal, because that's how far it sees, that's how much it sees. And we have the eyes of the mind and we have the eyes of the body. Now, the eyes of the mind is where the past and the future come into a relationship. The eyes of the body is here and now. Anytime you look at your body, you're in the here and now. You know, the person could be daydreaming. Somebody taps them on the shoulder. Oh, you're in the here and now. How easy was it to get enlightened in that moment? You know, someone taking a picture of themselves, a selfie in Niagara Falls, let's say, that person is taking a selfie with the natural world, but the person is from the natural world. So technically, it's pretty much Earth taking pictures of itself through the human framework. To open up to a collective intelligence, there has to be ideologically, at least because we're individuals, some honor system. Because without honor, there is no control, there is no honest history. The honor of the multidimensional. I feel it awaits us. That now man is not just in one world, but man is perceiving the dimensions of his world. The purpose of the outer realms, it's pretty much the earth's mind. Do you know? The purpose of the inner realms, it is your wings. When you realize your mind is a gift, it's as if like Thor's hammer accidentally fell into the body, fell on the head of a, fell into the head. Thor's hammer, imagine from the clouds, fell into the head of a chimp. And this Thor's hammer was the divine gift of the great judgment. That we are all acting like gods when we're choosing what to eat, what to drink, where to go, you know? So the notion of God, the notion of man, due to God being inconceivable and God being an inconceivable source, technically means from the effect you cannot understand why. So language and meaning and the static ways we live and identify I think I just created a new word, identify. Like how far you identify. Let's give that word identify. How far someone is identifying, guys. New word, identify. It's like I can't identify that much, you know. And it is this thing, like Michel Foucault, this French philosopher, he spoke about it, that it's this strange evolutionary movement into a position where a creature that had no container for meaning now has a container for meaning. And this is why the counter system, the counter response to a system of meaning is the meaningless. So us seeing the meaningless is a good sign. Whenever life makes you feel unknown, that's not a bad thing. You have actually found the scholar's table, the philosopher's table, the writer's table, the artist's canvas. It is all the interaction with the living unknown. The living unknown is such a pure idea. I can't tell you. It's like that was the secret I saw in nature, that it's alive and yet moving in an unknown way. It's remarkable when you realize you're unknown. that there's unknown dimensions to you. What does that mean? Imagine you're a parent and your child fails. Let's say your child likes to play an instrument. The child tries it and is bad at the instrument, you know? Now, what happens usually? The child says, I don't know, it's not, I'm not meant for this instrument. Let's say it's a violin. And the child's like, I don't like the violin doesn't like me. Imagine it's a young child, right? And the child's like, I lost, I failed, I can't do this, I don't want to do this. And usually what do some parents do? They're like, oh, it's okay, sweetie, don't worry about it. Screw the violin. It's a stupid instrument. Let's go to something that's more pleasant, right? But there are some parents who they go up to their kid and they're like, what did you say? And the child who said, I failed, I lost, I can't do anything, the parent's like, how do you know? And the child, if the child actually thinks about, the child doesn't even know. That means I can't, I've never tried doing a backflip, but I don't know if I can do a backflip or not. Do you see what I mean? Because the unknown is there, you are sculpting your outcome for yourself. And if you believe that outcome, then you miss out on what could be. This polar bear is staring at the unknown. What do you think this polar bear is staring at? This polar bear is like, okay, unknown, and it's just its instincts. Its genetical design is its backup system for mobility. That means even if we didn't have a soul, let's say if there was this notion of the soul or Rene Descartesian mind-body dualism. Mind is in its own dimension, body is in its own dimension, right? So let's say if the mind left the body, it doesn't necessarily mean the body is animate. I think the distinction between what is really the person and what is the person is something completely different. A person can appear like they are intense, or they are uh, complex, but then suddenly actually the reason they're complex and intense is because they're actually functioning from the other side. So what I'm saying is that it's like it's such a huge thing to discriminate what is free will's activity and what is the world's activity, if free will is technically being the world. Because if we have as much of an serious belief, just like how certain traditions they believe in the abstract, if we believe in the reality, not realizing it's the abstraction of the planet, then it's as if we are, I don't know, it's like, for how long do we want to be in a box? It gets boring. Believing or disbelieving doesn't advance. It's just a response to the moment, but it's not progress. Progress has to include new ideas. New ideas can only come from new experiences. New experiences can only arise if you trust. And if you wonder about right now, let's say you ask someone, hey, person A asks person B, do you trust yourself? And it's like, do you trust, the moment, and the person's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you see, what are they trusting? They're trusting their biology, how their heart is beating, how they are breathing, how they are a genetical, a biological mechanism. We are a biomechanism. But now the person at the same time is seeing that there is a mover. So just like how my car is a mechanism and I go sit in my car and I move it, it appears to me that the biological body is a mechanism being moved by a collective mind inside a mind where only as long as the body is here, physical reality is relevant. Beyond that, poetically, I would say the halls of the school I walk in, the soul is not a toy. The soul is not clay that can just be formed. It's insight before you were in the sight. It's insight of what is being in the sight of the moment. That means if you actually did not try to see, if you did not try to listen, if you did not try to do, if you did not try to be, and you were just watching your moment of being like a film. Like when you go to a film, you don't say in the middle of the film, the director should have done that. You know, you watch the film, you experience the event. So you can say trusting the inner event is like being in a moment where you're trusting how your mind is being you. And this element of trust is pushed outside of people because most people identify with language. This is why people get offended quickly. It's a sign of weakness. The angry person in the room literally has thrown themselves off the boat of where everybody else's eyes are looking at. Because on some level I look at it, I mean, I see it in this coronavirus situation we are in for now. What is going on? People are being so indoors that they want to do some activity. They want to find something to express themselves. We have to be careful of the mob mentality when it comes to a psychology of groups interacting with the management of their group, which is like right now the way for me, honestly, I don't see presidents and prime ministers. I see managers, managers of the nation. And if the manager can manage themselves and can see beyond their self and they can see the people, that's the manager that people want, you know? Because right now it's weird. Politics has become ego battles. It's as if people, it has become advertising. That means literally it's like who shows the cooler film. That means if they start making political campaign ads like 3D, like, you know, super sci-fi kind of ads of like the future policies the presidents want. And it's about vision. It's about vision and care, and realize in the middle of this whole ordeal of what is right and wrong, whether you are in the driver's seat or the passenger seat of your civilization, is really that is it new? Let me say it like this. I am waiting for people globally to at least experience one glimpse, one simple moment where before they see their self, you try to contemplate the self as the world. That means we are an individual self trying to contemplate a collective self. But what if it's a situation where rather than it being an individual self trying to contemplate a collective self, we think we're a collective self? How, like, what would it be like if we were a collective being first, wondering if it could be individual? It's all about signals. You know, we have received enough. It's no longer a school. This is why I get a little irritated when people say this is an educational planet and everything is love. It's like how adorable, you know? You know, let's all have a tea ceremony, you know, and enjoy how everything is simple. But why do we have such complex potential? Why do we have such advanced usage with language? Why are there structured designs that have generated and stepped out of the human mind? Do you know? It's as if there is something here. It's like a spaceship debris, as if this future spaceship collapsed and that's civilization. And people are walking wondering, should I care to grab some part of this spaceship and go try to make this advanced craft? You know, and that's the thing. The responsibility is missing because the fear, to be honest, is in the system, has made the system break. I'm telling you, a system that doesn't give freedom, act as disciplined you want, you're broken from the beginning. Because it's chaotic if you just realize people are like multidimensional tourists. We are like tourists visiting this planet for 100 years as a manifest individual. Now, these manifest individuals, when you go as a tourist to another country, you go to see the coolest spots, the nicest events, what the world has to offer, but you want a good, high quality experience, right? So imagine everybody started thinking like a hotel manager. Imagine all the people, all the political leaders in the world, they start focusing on service. They were like, all right, imagine like a good hotel, they knock and they're like, sir, do you need anything? Like those are smart hotels where without the person has asked, room service comes and asks and sees if you want something, you know. And some you could have a sign or whatever outside your door, but I'm saying like that's the thing. It's about providing something that makes the whole system win. If the whole system wins, then it makes it easier to lose. That means, can you imagine you failing, but your civilization is winning regardless? So you wake up in a day feeling that whatever, even if you make a mistake, the civilization is progressing, right? So it becomes a civilization. I'm just saying, it's everything, anything can be designed better. Anything. I am telling you, there will be children who will, in the future generations, hear me and see all the things that I didn't see. They will see my blind spots. Just like how when I looked at all the philosophers from back in the day and saw their blind spots as well. Some of the philosophers back in the day. So that is the nature of reality. We're not perfect, but if we have a mode of service, we can advance the quality of living. What does that mean? That means the basics. That means literally all government policies should follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You first help the physiological needs of the citizens, then you go towards the psychological needs, you know? Then eventually the citizen becomes self-actualized. That means technically a governments are medicine. What does that mean? That means if the people were healthy, they wouldn't need to be governed. If everybody had the honor of a president, or a true president that wants to serve their nation, that honor is the key, and it's not ideological. That means that I am just waiting to see which political leader on this planet is smart enough to come and say, hey guys, even though we are a nation, we are a planet first. I'm waiting for global leadership. I don't see it yet. Because we have feared being global, because we want to fit into the language of the inferior. The most crucial thing is making the smart chess move. If you put aside the good and bad moral lens, all is left is just efficiency and inefficiency. Literally, it's like a button every human being presses in every moment they make a decision. The only guru is the man in the mirror who was never there. Because you are. We need 8 billion advanced moments of being. In the Diamond Sutra, there's a saying. It says, keep your mind alive and free, without abiding in anywhere or anything. Now I want you to imagine a civilization based on a diamond wisdom. That just like how we wear clothing, we decide to wear the clothing of our mind differently. That it is true, language is the skin of the ego. But the mind has deeper secrets. And if we forget about those secrets, the valves of novelty will be shut off. Conscious global living. Strive for that, and the future generations will salute you. For every bird that flies in that instant knows the secret of the skies. We just need to get to the self-sustaining stage where the system has such high expectations for itself that if they ask what does an advanced civilization look like, we don't have time to describe it because we're too busy advancing it. Have we forgotten? We are on a pebble in a light beam. Have the ideas on the surface of this rock become so important that we have forgotten our human nature? I want to go into a quote tunnel. That's a segment of these Mr. Within talks that I pretty much read a bunch of quotes from either a person or a theme in history just to see how people's eyes saw it. So for tonight, I'm going to go into a quote tunnel of the sage named Sri Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi says, "No one succeeds without effort. Those who succeed owe their success to perseverance." Ramana Maharshi says, "Time is only an idea. There is only the reality. Whatever you think it is, it looks like that. If you call it time, it is time. If you call it existence, it is existence, and so on. After calling it time, you divide it into days and nights, months, years, hours, minutes, etc. Time is immaterial for the path of knowledge." Ramana Maharshi says, "Without understanding yourself, what is the use of trying to understand the world?" That means the eyes, your own eyes, are the first world to get familiar with, to get acquainted with. And that's really where the prodigy's talent is born. Something in life that interested them regardless of what idea they had on it. Ramana Maharshi says, "You need not aspire for or get any new state. Get rid of your present thoughts, that is all. And the way you get rid of the thoughts," he later on goes to say, "is not by getting rid of thoughts. You just watch and notice the watcher is not the thought. And then you don't have anything to do with thought. It's literally like a bird flying in the sky. It's like you can't do anything about it. It just comes and goes." I mean, you can choose to act on the thoughts, but you know what I mean. Like in the inner realm is like an internal cinematic language. Ramana Maharshi says, "Mind is consciousness, which has put on limitations. You are originally unlimited and perfect. Later you take on limitations and become the mind. One must realize his self in order to open the store of unalloyed happiness," says Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi says, "The degree of freedom from unwanted thoughts and the degree of concentration on a single thought are the measures to gauge spiritual progress." Ramana Maharshi says even the structure of the atom has been found by the mind. Therefore, the mind is subtler than the atom. That which is behind the mind, namely the individual soul, is subtler than the mind. Ramana Maharshi says concentration of the mind is in a way common to both knowledge and yoga. Yoga aims at union of the individual with the universal, the reality. This reality cannot be new. It must exist even now, and it does exist. Yeah, because because we have reference points, we feel we have created the idea of a new. But if there was no time, how could something be new? Or how could something be old? Like the archaic and the modern, they dissolve, they evaporate in the sign where the observation goes beyond thought, beyond time. The thought of time's a solidity or linearity. Ramana Maharshi says, if there is anything besides the self, there is reason to fear. As a question, he says, who sees the second? First, the ego arises and sees objects as external. If the ego does not rise, the self alone exists and there is no second. Yeah, that self is your moment, and the ego is identification of attributeless attention with a certain attributes of a part of the content of your moment. That means technically you can say a person stressed, like I saw in the World Health Organization website, depression is raising globally. I was like, what the? And I was worried about this idea of the civilization being depressed towards extinction, depressing itself towards extinction. But then I realized it's like a ridiculous idea, depression, you know, because it's only you're looking at the future. You have anxiety when when the future is involved, the present and the future. So that's the thing. It's like in this life, you can have a relationship have a sense of your own identity with an association of the past to the present. When I look at it from the past, I am surviving so much better than my ancestors. Like you won't believe. It's like none of my ancestors could make a podcast. I'm the first out of all my ancestors to do this, you know? So you see, like when I look at it to the past, I'm like, wow, we're so progressed and advanced. When I look at it in comparison to the future, I see we are there's so much work left to do that for us to act depressed with this level is nothing. Do you know? This world right now is there's nothing wrong. It's like this shouldn't be depressing. Depression it would be if you get your consciousness caught into a cyberspace simulation where you couldn't tell if the world was real or digital. Then you could have a reason to be depressed, you know? But because we're in nature, if you realize there is nothing wrong even before the concept of wrong, I mean, of course, there is actions. Like, I'm not trying to make the people become ignorant of law. The mind is a technology. How you use it suggests how advanced your species becomes. If you use this advanced instrument that took us 4 billion years to kind of step out of the savageness to just look around for a little bit. Language is a sign of great evolutionary leap, of a great evolutionary leap, that we stopped killing each other, we started naming each other and debating, arguing. This is why that's the best thing. That it's in before any fight is physical, you keep it on the linguistic level, and in the linguistic level, you dispatch. That means, let me tell you, everybody is fighting a battle you can't see. It doesn't matter if the person is a juggernaut, a very strong person, or a weak person. Everybody has things in their life that are pressure points, you know? For me, like these talks are sometimes a release point. What does that mean? That means imagine that there is throughout, like literally like an astronaut with an oxidizer, something connected to the astronaut's suit in space where it releases oxygen. The oxygen bursts instantly and it causes the astronaut to have some pressure system to move, right? But what it's suggesting, it's like where we are finding our happiness is actually the same place where other members of our species are finding their sorrow. And now we have to bring forth a new ethos. And I think, from at least in my, I'm just one guy talking, I don't know. But I know this, that one model, if the world couldn't think of anything else, there is a model I'm proposing. And I'm pretty much writing a book on this, and I'm going to go speak about it. But the model I see is that we have to usher in a new definition of what it means to be. That is the secret. That if you keep speaking the same, this is the sign of evolution. If you're someone who's speaking the same way, what I mean by that is like the days go forth, the world doesn't wait. Only man waits for his own self conceived perfection. When you realize the world doesn't wait, that means whatever happens, everything moves on. Somebody is nice to you. You experience that moment, moved on, days passed. Somebody is rude to you. You experience that moment, days pass. It's like endless visitations of the chaos and order of this world projection. And to study it is the honorable task. That now we have the divine weapon, the mind that could observe before it could act. That is the divinity we have access to. That is the cosmic intelligence. That is the chess pieces we have. We can move. And the cool thing is in strategy. This is one of the coolest things. Like when I was a kid, like a lot of these early video games I would play was like, there was this video game, Generals, Warcraft, Frozen Throne. These games had to do with multiple commands and a multiple awareness to multiple events going on one map, right? So now imagine your mind is like a map and you are trying to discover the various kinds of way it's moving. That means before the person, like nobody needs to wear language like a clothing and say, I'm spiritual, I'm non-spiritual, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, sure, I could create any term and say I'm that. It's like, what does that do? It doesn't do anything. This is why after you kind of watch the language, when you get a sense of what the mind is, that harbors its own knowing. So I would tell you, you are experiencing time timelessly. You are watching meaning as it is coming and going. Guys, I had this thought uh, that right now, like when a person is asked like, what is your work? We identified with our individual investment in which path we've walked, but I thought maybe in the future we become such conscious of our opportunity to build an advanced civilization that you ask someone, what do you do? And the person's like, I serve the body of the civilization. I help design and build the body of the civilization. Imagine like a construction worker. And imagine like a university professor, they ask him, what do you do? And he's like, I serve the mind of the civilization, you know? Yeah, so do you see? So it's all these, and the soul of civilization is the global, just like how Carl Jung created the term, the collective unconscious. I will tell you, it is the conscious, the collective conscious, rather than the collective unconscious. That means what you don't know, and what I don't know, and what everybody else doesn't know is the same. So we are saying if that's the same, that technically implies that we can have, all of us can know everything we don't know. That's the aim. This is why we don't have time for violence. Isaac Asimov says violence is the last refuge of the encounter. What does that mean? That means it's like you couldn't use your brain, so you had to use your fists. And those who realize the value of the mind, it's a fragile opportunity. That means people are being violent so easily. They're not looking at what they're being violent to. They don't see that a person alive, it's like how many of their ancestors had to go through so much suffering just for the person to be alive now. This is why we are dishonoring the future generations by not allowing the children being born to feel that this world can be their advanced home. That means we're not treating this planet like we live on it. We are treating it like we're renting it like an Airbnb. The species is not treating it like it's home because it's not letting it advance. We're like, do you know what I mean? Just the taking psychology. They say like sometimes people, you can see who they are, their nature, in accordance to if they give more or if they take more. People who take more, they don't realize their unconscious mind is being given an authorization to take them. So when you take something unjustified, you also are giving your mind, the unconscious mind, a chance to take you. That means the repeat of the echoing experience. Anyways, I'm going to read a few more quotes, guys. Then I'm going to go to the Discord server, and tonight there's going to be a global topic, which yeah, I think it would be the global topic of what is going to happen to meditation, the idea of it in 200 years. So that's going to be the Discord topic, guys. I'm going to read a few more quotes, end this off, and then actually I'm going to tell you a story before I end it off, but let's finish the quote down. Ramana Maharshi says, our own self-realization is the greatest service we can render the world. Ramana Maharshi says, the best way to meditate is through meditation itself. Ramana Maharshi says, I'm not the perishable body, but the eternal self. Ramana Maharshi says, silence is also conversation. Ramana Maharshi says, all bad qualities center around the ego. When the ego is gone, realization results by itself. There are neither good nor bad qualities in the self. The self is free from all qualities. Qualities pertain to the mind only. Ramana Maharshi says, all activities and events that a body is to go through are determined at the time of conception. Ramana Maharshi says, let what comes come, let what goes go, see what remains. Ramana Maharshi says, actions yield result by the ordinance of God as he wills. Ramana Maharshi says, the body dies, but the spirit that transcends it cannot be touched by death. That's it. Ramana Maharshi says, for those who have for those who have obtained unobstructed knowledge of self, The world is seen merely as a bondage-causing imagination. Ramana Maharshi says, consciousness is indeed always with us. Everyone knows I am. No one can deny his own being. Ramana Maharshi says it is the high power which does everything, and the man is only a tool. If he accepts that position, he is free from troubles. Otherwise, he courts them. Ramana Maharshi says, when there are thoughts, it is distraction. When there are no thoughts, it is meditation. Ramana Maharshi says, self-reform automatically brings about social reform. Ramana Maharshi says the greatest error of a man is to think that he is weak by nature, evil by nature. Every man is divine and strong in his real nature. What are weak and evil are his habits, his desires and thoughts, but not himself. Ramana Maharshi says, who am I? Not the body, because it is decaying. Not the mind, because the brain will decay with the body. Not the personality, nor the emotions, for these also will vanish with death. Ramana Maharshi says, suffering turns men towards their creator. Time and space always change, but there's something which is eternal and changeless. For example, the world and time, past or future, nothing exists for us in sleep, but we exist. Let us try to find out that which is changeless and which always exists. Ramana Maharshi says, silence is ever speaking. It is the perennial flow of language. Ramana Maharshi says, it is every intelligent man's experience that evil doing recoils on the doer sooner or later. Ramana Maharshi says, the real is ever present, like the screen on which the cinematographic pictures move. While the picture appears on it, the screen remains invisible. So stop the picture and the screen will become clear. All thoughts and events are merely pictures moving on the screen of pure consciousness, which alone is real. Guys, Ramana Maharshi he knows what he's saying. I'm telling you, this man is, he understands the engineering of something that is naturally intelligent on its own. Ramana Maharshi says Ramana Maharshi says that which comes and goes, rises and sets, is born and dies is the ego. That which always abides, never changes, and is devoid of qualities in the self. So guys, I'll see you in the Discord server for those who want to discuss what's going to happen to meditation in 200 years. That's the topic for tonight's Discord server. So see you in the School of Athens 200.